Welcome back to .NET Rocks. This is Karl Franklin.
And this is Richard Campbell.
And we are still in Prague at Update.NET.
Yeah.
Conference.
And having a great time.
Having a great time. Tibby's here. He's brought scotch.
Yes, we're drinking scotch.
Yeah.
This may have consequences.
We're celebrating our 1600 show milestone here, you and I together while we're here.
Together. Recorded it before then.
Yeah,
but it came out yesterday based on the recording times. But
Right.
yay, 1600 shows, friend.
Yeah, congratulations.
Chink, chink.
And congratulations. Karl Ott is here.
Carl's with us.
Congratulations,
The other Karl.
Yeah, the other Karl. And we're going to be talking to him in just a minute. But first, we have this really interesting thing we call Better Know a Framework.
Awesome.
Roll the crazy music.
All right, dude. What do you got?
Well, since Karl wants to talk about top Azure security fails, I thought I would pull up a list of 20 of the worst tech support calls ever.
Oh, no.
From notalwaysright.com. So I went through these, and some are just kind of, laugh at the stupid people.
Dumb or mean.
But, when there's irony,
Yes.
it's even more fun. And so I'm going to read the number one voted with 10,153 votes.
Okay.
Dumb support call. All right. So this obviously happened at a computer store. So somebody walked in and said this. Hi, my son says that I have Spartans on my laptop and I should bring it to you guys.
Spartans?
Ma'am? Spartans? Yes, I called my son at school and told him that screens keep popping up all the time, and he said that I have Spartans. Oh, you mean Trojans? That's
Right.
a possibility. Well, let me run this analyzer on your laptop real quick, and we'll see what's going on. Now, young man, my son is in college, and he says it has Spartans. You just stand here in a little uniform and make minimum wage. I think my son knows what he's talking about.
It's like, dude, you just gave that guy your computer. How dumb are you?
You're right, ma'am. I was hoping to run a diagnostic and find out that it wasn't Spartans. But just by looking at the login screen, I can tell that you probably have about 300 of the little guys running around. 300? Is that bad? Oh, it's horrible, ma'am. They cram themselves into a bottleneck and kill wave after wave of data until there's a wall of dead programs blocking any more traffic through your computer. Oh, that figures. I'm going to have to buy a new computer now. Okay, ma'am. I think that would be best.
Spartans. I love it.
That just kills me.
Man. Spartans.
Now, young man.
Yeah.
Oh, my gosh.
I love tech support.
Isn't that great?
It's a good one.
Yeah. The gods of vengeance and irony smacking you down.
Yep.
That's what happens.
Don't pick on the guy who's supposed to help you.
It's
unwise.
Or don't shh where you eat.
Yes.
Right? Okay. Anyway, who's talking to us today, Richard?
Grabbed a comment off of show 1445, the one we did back in May of 2017 with Troy Hunt, which I happily named Security Nightmares. And
I like the
I'll read the opening
abstract
line from the abstract. Troy Hunt is back. Put on your tinfoil hat and get under the bed.
No, Spartans!
No, Spartans. Here come the Spartans.
Here come the Spartans.
I want to read this comment from James Moody, who's been a long-time listener, and
Yeah.
this is a great comment. He says, in my humble opinion, developers need to be more akin to medical doctors or lawyers in that we need to know how to do everything related to software. That's not to say that we'll always do everything, just have an idea of how it's done. Surgeons have nurses, lawyers have paralegals, developers have their own industry specialists, InfoSec guys, right? To help with network, hardware, security, performance, and so on. If you must talk to a security team in order to design or code your app, then you've already failed. I don't know if I agree with that. Your company security team almost certainly knows nothing about your needs, much less your users' needs. They have no idea what risks are acceptable within the context of your business app. You and only you and your users know that. I don't think I agree with that either, actually. Often users are just have no radar on what the security requirements are. if you happen to be working in medical spaces and you have to be compliant with HIPAA, doesn't mean that your doctors know anything about HIPAA. Doesn't mean that you as a developer may know anything about HIPAA. Certainly the patient doesn't know anything about HIPAA. And yet if you're not compliant with HIPAA, everybody's in big trouble. Yeah. That's what InfoSec guys are for.
Yeah.
But he goes on to say, ladies and gents, we created this mess. We need to deal with it. Nothing happens without software, and developers create software. Yes, that's true.
Yes, they do.
If you're looking for developers with security training, check out GIAC's GSSP. So there is training in the security space for .NET developers, and certainly developers should be aware of it. But that doesn't preclude you having InfoSec guys who specialize in that sort of thing. And I kind of like, before I start an app, to sit down with everybody that's going to be affected with a piece of software. Operations folks, tech support, and InfoSec, and saying, here's what we're thinking, guys. Any red flags? What are you worried about? Because everybody has different viewpoints on that.
Yeah. Some people like industrial grade aluminum for their hats. Yeah. Some people prefer the consumer grade.
Just a double layer of Reynolds is good enough for me, really.
Or just a Pringles can.
Yeah, a good Pringles can. I only use those for antennas, but that's a different thing. So, James, thank you so much for your comment. A copy of Music to Code By is on its way to you. And if you'd like a copy of Music to Code By, write a comment on the website at .netrocks.com or via any of our social media. Publish every show to Facebook. We used to publish Google+, but it's gone away.
Yeah, that's right.
And if you comment there and we read it on the show, we'll send you a copy of Music to Code By.
And you can also follow us on Twitter. I'm at Karl Franklin. He's at Rich Campbell. Send us a tweet. We run them through a Spartan scan.
Is that a thing?
SpartanScanner.com.
Spartan Scanner. Now it needs to be a thing.
I also got to mention the Music to Code By is up to 18 tracks. You can get them for $5 each, or the whole collection for $42, because that's the answer to everything. All right, now let's bring on Karl Otz. Karl is a cloud and cybersecurity consultant, as well as an international speaker and trainer with a broad range of deep Azure expertise. He believes that cloud technologies are the key to successful digital transformation. Karl applies his passion and expertise to his work as a managing consultant at Composure, the Azure-only consultancy, also an Azure MVP. He speaks, he does training, he's a systems security professional, certified CISSP.
I actually think that's from the conference website where they have the outdated.
Oh, it's really? Okay.
So
what's changed?
So we changed our company name.
Oh, what's that?
So we dropped 5 letters, over half of that, and now we are Azure.
You're just Azure.
Yes, we are sure about Azure. So we brought the Azure.com domain.
Are you sure?
We are so sure.
All right.
So I'm going to talk about InfoSec and essentially phishing everybody that windowsa.azure.com and portal.a.azure.com and all of those domains.
Oh, this could get confusing.
Yeah.
It's a good thing we're here.
But here I read a comment about a guy saying we don't need InfoSec guys, and I'm sitting with an InfoSec guy.
Right.
I'm pretty sure he has an opinion about that.
I used to be a developer as well.
And then what, you got over it? Is it parole? Like, how does that work?
Yeah, I think there's some sort of a 20-mile radius where I'm not allowed to go back, something like that.
Don't let that man touch the keyboard.
Oh my.
Your session was going to be top 18, but I don't want to set a number here. Because Azure's supposed to be secure, dude. Like, how we can't go wrong with Azure. I'm in the cloud. I'm safe.
Yeah, I think that it's about the whole spectrum of responsibility. That's where everything starts, really.
Yep.
So essentially, if you're in a software as a service part of Azure, or however you brand some of those, if you're using functions or whatever in a very tight sandbox, then you can go wrong, but you can only go wrong with very small parts of your own stuff that you do. If you're going to build everything on your own, if you have containers or even infrastructure as a service, then a lot can go wrong because you're responsible of everything that you put in there.
Sure, yeah.
Things can spread. Yeah.
The Trojans might spread, or the Spartans might
spread. But I appreciate your thinking that one of the reasons for me to go up to as little infrastructure ownership as possible is that that's all surface area for attack, and I'd rather let Microsoft deal with that surface area than me.
Yeah, essentially, if something's wrong there, they have a much bigger incentive to fix that than me.
Yeah. If it's your VM and it's got and you haven't patched it and it gets exploited, that's kind of on you.
Yeah, I actually had on my session, I ran a list of how many times there have been failed login attempts on a set of VMs in Azure in the past 24 hours. And there were over 2,000 unique login names attempted. The topmost one was the administrator with over 12,000 times.
So I take it you guys don't turn that into a drinking game.
No.
No?
Well, you can once.
Yeah.
Once.
You're not going to get to the bottom of the log.
No.
Do you guys use the honeypot technique where you change the administrator name to something like Bob and then the actual and then create a regular account called administrator
with
so that
no
you can
privileges of any kind?
Yeah.
That's a common technique.
Well, essentially the infrastructure part is actually the most boring there for me, because that's something that there's a lot of people who already know how to do the actual host hardening part already. That's not dev stuff. That's not really Azure puristic stuff. It's something that has been done, and there are people who are very great at it. Something that I can try to be the best at is how do I configure the Azure resource called virtual machine, or how do I configure the overall Azure architecture in there.
Is Azure by default any more secure than if you took a Windows server and just connected it to a public IP address inherently? Whoa. He's got to take a drink for that one.
Yeah.
Here we go.
All right. So coming back to my session as well, it's essentially a set of rants, 18 or however many I can actually have time to
fit into an hour.
Essentially. So Azure allows us to do security in a lot more, let's say, layered way than what we can do in a traditional data center. If you already have like Cisco and all of the big traditional IT vendor guys come in and set everything as they want, adding layers and layers of complexity, obscurity, and hopefully even security there as well. Most likely putting something on our own data center is great. But when we actually want to connect that to the internet, then we come to the analogy part that what happens when we do the same in Azure. Well, in Azure, all of the stuff that we already invested a lot in has already been taken care of by Microsoft.
Right.
So they have hired the guards with actual guns in there. In Finland, regular data center or kind of nationally audited data centers don't really have guns in there.
No.
Yeah.
They might have CCTV cameras, but again, if I have a ladder, most likely I can just walk in there, maybe with a hard hat with me. So the kind of physical security part is taken care of. Maybe the kind of electricity, networking side is already taken care of by Microsoft. So doing that on our own data center or a hoster's data center, just adding a new VM and opening that up to the internet. Yes, we have the same level of security as we had before.
Yeah.
But we need to invest and keep on investing on keeping that secure.
I love the physical security problem. I don't know if I ever told you this story. This is a bit of a digression, which you'll probably enjoy. Right. But back before the public cloud, had rented an office space, and we turned a closet into a server closet and had half a dozen machines. They were expensive.
This isn't your house you're talking about?
This is not in my house. This was in an office space.
Okay.
And got broken into. They came in through, we were on the third floor, but they came in through the windows and they stole the machines.
Wow.
Right? So that's bad. So, insurance claim, replaced the machines, put bars on the windows.
Right.
And 2 weeks later, they knocked down the door and took the machines again because they knew we were going to have new machines.
Wow.
So, another insurance claim, replaced the machines, put in a reinforced door,
got
bars on the windows. They broke into the office next door and cut through the wall and stole the machines the third time.
What?
Yeah.
Wow.
And after that, the insurance company would not cover us anymore.
Wow.
But it's just like, hey, you know what? Physical security isn't trivial.
No.
Actually keeping machines safe. And I have walked through some Microsoft data centers. They're concrete bunkers for a reason.
Yeah.
Physical security is its own problem. There's no two ways about it.
Before we get back to it, can you also tell me about the key, the USB key that you use, Richard?
I've just gotten a YubiKey.
Oh, perfect.
And I just recently heard that Azure is going to fully support it, but it's basically it's a key generator. It's a token generator, and so you plug it into your USB slot. This particular one is a 5, and it also has NFC built in, so it secures my phone as well.
Now, what does that mean? Can people not use your computer and phone if that thing isn't present?
I haven't turned it on for the login in Windows because that's pretty dramatic. Like if you lose it, you kind of are hooped.
Yeah.
So what I've turned it on is for LastPass, for my password security.
Okay.
So I cannot log into my password manager without my YubiKey anymore. And so in that sense, it's like if you open up a browser, the first thing it asks is for the YubiKey token and it just won't provide passwords without it.
But the data on your internal hard drive is not protected because
I haven't turned any of that on yet. Yeah. So I am just getting used to YubiKey. So I'm adding feature by feature.
And is it UBI key?
Yeah, UBI key.
And you can get them anywhere?
Pretty much. They mail order them, and they're a few dollars. But
this is the kind of thing that I've been talking about for years.
I'm interested in getting away from passwords, right?
Yeah, me too.
I have a humongous password on my LastPass account, but with my YubiKey, I don't have to type it anymore. It's just like without the key, you don't get in.
That's great. It makes sense. Now, do you have a backup copy of it somewhere?
Of the password?
Of the YubiKey?
I don't. And that's one of the reasons I haven't put it on the Windows yet. It's now that I've played with it for a while, I'm like, okay, this is pretty good. Now I'm going to get a spare.
Yeah. I'd like to have a copy in a concrete room.
Well, somewhere. The main thing is to put it somewhere that you're actually going to find it again, because that would suck.
That's true. All right, let's talk about some Azure fails, security fails.
I really appreciate right off the bat, it's like you move to Azure so you don't have to deal with physical security.
Pretty much, yeah.
But don't use, the best way to avoid getting a VM hacked is don't have VMs.
Yes, exactly.
That's right.
Best use of, as the Japanese Minister responsible of cybersecurity, he has never used a computer. So that's the best security that you can get. You can't get hacked. No personal email whatsoever.
Yeah. It doesn't have...
if you cut off your hands, that's probably a good measure too, because then you won't get them dirty or infected.
Yeah.
Stop breathing. Chances of getting a cold are much lower.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Exactly.
I'm frustrated by who put him in that job. I don't care how good an administrator he is. It's like, how can you possibly be credible if you don't have the slightest clue about the friction of passwords?
Exactly. But the good thing is that now it's more apparent, and maybe with some other countries where we have at least an idea that they might have some background in IT, or they might have some idea about cyber.
Yeah.
So it's better than it's kind of upfront, and we don't even kid ourselves on that side.
Yeah. Certainly we're not going to take any advice from him at all, but I think the challenge is just appreciating. I mean, you kind of want someone who's frustrated with it too. It's like, why are these things so hard?
Yeah, that's how you make changes.
Yeah.
But coming back to the physical security and moving from that, so Microsoft is really doing it kind of in an overkill way. I also have the privilege of visiting the Dublin data center, and essentially it's in Ireland, so it's an island. First of all, there's only one tank on the whole island, and the data center design is taking into account, the risk assessment is taking into account that if somebody attacks with a tank, so there's a moss on outside of the walls of the data center building.
Crazy.
So that's kind of overkill that you have to do if you want to have the same level of physical security on your own data center that Microsoft has. Yes. But on Azure, really, the same laws that in any software system applies. As long as you have your more than one user, you get to deal with all kinds of fancy authorization and access management related fails and issues. My personal favorite is that whenever I go to any new customer, I don't even have to run any scans, nothing. I just ask them to please log into your Azure portal, show me what you have. And usually by the first of all, at worst, they log in using a shared password. It's like Azure admin at hotmail.com, something like that. That they
yourbusiness.com.
Yeah, right. Well, that's already better, but most likely that is still not an Azure AD account. It's their live or Microsoft personal account.
And that kills me. Is how many people are using their personal account for the Azure?
Now you can also use your Gmail account there. So so the same email address on your portal might look like your legitimate enterprise.com email address, or your enterprise.com email address. That can be from your Azure AD, from somebody else's Azure AD, your Gmail account, or your personal Live ID. And the Gmail and Live ID are very vulnerable to these spoofing types of attacks. I have no idea who this guy is. I personally, my primary Live ID has as a primary email ID, so a domain name that I haven't owned for 15 years.
Right.
So, but I can still log in there. If I invite that user in, I can't get an email invite link, but I can always kind of ask the Azure admin that, yes, please send me the direct link. It's maybe in my spam folder. Just copy paste it to me. And then once I'm in there, essentially I can do anything. And that's one of the big things that even though Office 365 is such a big thing right now, and even though most customers who are on Azure, enterprise customers or any customers who are on Azure, they have at least some level of Azure AD in place. they still use this kind of mix of different external IDs or personal IDs. And that's really one of my pet peeves in there, that you're inviting the same user from several different ways, and most likely you don't know who that user actually is and whether or not they are actually covered under your company's, MFA rules, or are they using a secure computer? Where are they even logging in?
Right. So what is your preferred strategy for like the master account? If a company's setting up Azure for the first time, should they be making a separate email address that is that account? What does that look like?
So for the first time, first of all, it depends.
Nice.
I'm a consultant. So it depends on whether or not you have a direct relationship with Microsoft. Larger enterprises have their own enterprise agreements.
Yeah.
So actually that's something that's tied with their regular, updating your Windows licensing. And together you have a slice of Azure with it as well.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
And that person who's named there, most likely is a procurement person. They get an email saying that, yes, you are invited to Azure Enterprise Portal. Please click here to activate your Azure. They don't have any clue what it is. Most likely they just sign in there, click on that link, sign in with their Windows or Microsoft Volume Licensing ID, which is a personal Microsoft account.
It shouldn't have been either.
Yes, but it still is.
Yeah.
And they log in there and they say, okay, here's my Azure stuff. Who do I invite? Here's my IT guy. And then they invite somebody in, and then they actually have the enterprise level access. And that's where you create your kind of department and account level access. And underneath those, you actually create your Azure subscriptions, which is the thing that you and I actually log into Azure portal.azure.com and actually see the resources and resource groups.
Yeah.
So the subscriptions are sitting on some sort of topology depending on where do you get your Azure. If you're a startup, you might get free Azure from somewhere.
Yeah.
You don't get this
the
enterprise.
old Spark accounts.
Well, yeah. What used to be Bespark, nowadays Azure Microsoft Startup, something like that.
Right.
Yeah. Essentially, it's a set of sponsorship accounts where nowadays we even get to rename the subscriptions, which is good.
Yeah.
It was a missing feature for a while.
And Karl, I'm going to interrupt you for just a moment for this very important message.
Hey, Karl here. If you enjoy music to code by, you or someone you know might be interested in the app, which I've generically branded Music to Flow by. See what I did there? It's a subscription model. And if you bought the complete collection of Music to Code by before October 24th, 2017, you are eligible to win a free 6-month subscription. With that, you get access to all the tracks on your phone with offline support. You get continuous play and even a sleep timer. Download Music to Flow by in your app store and flow on.
And we're back. It's Richard Campbell, Karl Franklin here at the Update Conf in Prague, and we're talking to Karl Otz, the other Karl.
The other Karl.
About getting these, I think these key accounts, and now that YubiKey directly supports Azure logins, like I kind of like that the super user account you have to have this YubiKey.
Yes.
Although you can have clones, like there could be multiple YubiKeys that would work on that same account.
I'm definitely getting one.
So most likely you have to have some sort of a master key to manage what if for something unconceivable happens? What if, for example, the multi-factor authentication is down?
Right.
That has happened just this week.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
So users who had their MFA turned on globally in Azure were not able to log in.
Wow.
I have the problem where I'm here and without a SIM card, right? Or even if I do have a SIM card, my number is different. I'm overseas, so the 2FA doesn't work. Yeah. I have not been able to log into Amazon to order something, by the way, for that matter.
What I'm actually personally using kind of to counter that is to have a phone number in there and not use a send to SMS, but call me, and the kind of home SIM card is actually redirecting all calls. When you are not connected, please redirect to the one whatever I have.
That's good. Good idea.
Calls always get through.
But I'm getting more and more feeling like I do not want to use SMS as part of my multi-factor anymore. I want to use something else.
It can be a part of that, but really it's all about combination of not just FOO, but at least 3 different parts that we'd like to actually provide the actual authentication.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really all about Azure in there. As you mentioned, we have now a possibility of adding this passwordless authentication,
right?
But still we have this approach that it's better that you have a vault somewhere in your kind of secure enterprise where you actually store kind of backup copies, break glass type of scenarios.
Yes. And then it sets off alarms when you use it.
Yes. And preferably needs 2 senior officers with their own keys.
With their own keys. At least notify more people, right?
Yes.
I'm a big believer in 2 pairs of eyes on every non-automated administrative task.
Definitely. One good example of doing that is setting a default account, as you said, a system account with your Azure admin at companydomain.onmicrosoft.com. So it's on the local Azure AD. So even if your ADFS sync is stopped, it's still in there on the cloud side. And add 2 separate admins numbers as the MFA receiving numbers in there. That's an example.
Yeah, so you have some redundancy there. There's no single point of failure. And when a point does fail, you can still make things work.
Yeah, exactly.
How do you feel about authenticators in general? The Microsoft Authenticator, Google Authenticators?
The software-based apps. Yeah, I think they are driving towards a good behavior.
I kind of like this better than the text message authenticator because you can still use the phone. It doesn't have to be online.
Yeah.
You're still carrying it with you.
The Facebook app on my phone is a good one. So it basically generates a code. You open the app, go to that code page, and paste it in.
Yeah, exactly. But how is it actually different from the physical key, like the RSA keys that we had? It's the same set of behavior where we actually moved away from 10 years ago or so. Yeah. And now we are back at the same thing.
I love the RSA key generators. It's a great solution.
They felt reliable. You just, sometimes you lose them. They cost money.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, they work.
They work.
They do.
Yeah. So I appreciate all the login strategies. And clearly, this year's Ignite, I'm wearing my Run As hat here. One of the big themes was getting away from passwords as a whole. So we are starting to see Microsoft make some moves there.
Yeah. Can't wait. It's going to be a happy day for me.
Passwords suck.
They do. And nobody makes good passwords because they can't remember them.
Well,
if they were good.
I've been using LastPass for a few years now, and I change passwords on a regular basis, and they are long.
And they get hacked too. LastPass got hacked once.
They did, but they didn't have anything lost.
Right.
And they were quick to be polite about it. And I didn't, those guys handled pretty well. But the thing is, it's still more secure than using the same password everywhere else or writing them down somewhere or trying to keep them in your own store.
Yeah.
And I don't care what password authenticator you use, just use one. Yeah. But I'd rather not have passwords.
Yeah.
That's right. But really, after we have successfully authenticated you, it's the same thing as with any software system. Now that we're dealing in the cloud, essentially, it's about authorization. So what can I do once I've logged into the Azure subscription?
Well, everything. You're a super user.
Yes,
of course. Duh, Karl. Come on.
Exactly. And that's the default. Whenever I go to a new customer, ask them to log in, ask them to show how many subscriptions do they have, what are your permissions, what other users do you see, and what are the rights for those other users. And from time to time, it's always owner in the subscription scope. So not only because they are owner, they can invite in anybody in any identity provider. So a Gmail account, my private @filmoholic.com account, which I haven't owned for 15 years. all of those accounts can be invited.
Right.
A Gmail account that looks like a corporate account.
Yes.
Anybody from any country can be invited in because owner is essentially a user access administrator. So they can kick out anybody.
Sure.
They can invite anybody in.
You can wreak so much havoc with that account.
Yes, exactly.
So the account basically shouldn't be used then, except to add new people.
Yes, exactly. And there should be a lot of scrutiny around it. Sure. So the default should be the contributor, which is also a super admin. They can do anything. They can delete anything, create anything, modify anything, create any amount of costs.
Right.
Essentially, they can start a huge Databricks cluster or AKS cluster or start mining Bitcoin, even though it's not, officially as part of the policy, you're not allowed to do it, but you can still do it for a while before you get caught.
Sure.
And of course that generates costs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And there's no way of you calling as a customer calling to Microsoft that, some of our agents went rogue and generated costs. Please don't bill us for that. No, that's not how it works.
That's not going to work out.
No.
Yeah.
So essentially a contributor in a subscription level is the minimum. You should demote your owners to the contributors. Now they can't invite anybody in, but they can still do everything.
Yeah. So you still have very few of those.
Yes, exactly. And that's how we should use the scoping. So role-based access control in Azure is about what is your role? Owner, contributor, reader, whichever. Then what is the scope that you're granted access to? Is it a subscription, a management group, resource group, or a specific resource? Or in terms of networking, even a sub-resource. You can grant access to only a subnet in a virtual network, for example.
So you can get very granular on this.
Yes, exactly. And with Azure Resource Manager, actually, all of these roles are actually just a set of permissions to Microsoft.the resource provider name -action -post get whatever.
Right.
It's actually just a API management. The whole Azure Resource Manager and the roles that you can do, it's about which key is allowed to call which actions in your specific Azure Resource Manager.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. So most of the time, you shouldn't be living in a contributor account. I'm thinking very like just enough administrator.
Yeah.
These are accounts you use for a particular task. You know, going out and building a template to assign a set of resource to it, and then you log out of it and go use it from a regular account.
Or if you just want to throw money at it, you can buy the Azure AD Privileged Identity Management, which is nice. Although it is very confusingly built, it really is clear that there's two teams: one team working for the Office 365 or the Azure AD roles, and one team for the Privileged Identity Management for Azure Resources side.
So they're really two different products that happen to be under the same umbrella.
Yes, and that doesn't really help when you try to find out from documentation that which services are enabled on which. Essentially, that product is nice. You can have default reader access for everybody, but only when you need to. You can elevate your own rights as a self-service or through an approval workflow to a higher level of either subscription scope from resource to subscription, from reader to contributor, or from reader to owner, and then you're automatically demoted back. And we can enforce stuff like MFA on, like you maybe sometimes you need to add a justification. If you're kind of service provider, you maybe need to add a ticket ID, that kind of stuff.
Cool.
It's cool. Can you hold that thought for just a minute, Karl? Because Richard, guess what time it is now?
Must be that happy time again.
It's the happiest time of the year.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's time to add virus protection to this show by demanding our listeners buy Spartans and wear one at all times.
Is that a Spartan in your pocket? You're just happy to see me.
I think you're picking up what I'm putting down.
I'm getting there. Yes, I got there.
It's actually time to give away a $5,000 technology shopping spree to one lucky winner.
Today's the day.
Today's the day.
Hooray!
Hooray! But first, let me tell you about the most comprehensive developer toolkit for building modern apps on the market today, Telerik DevCraft. With more than 1,100 Telerik.NET and Kendo UI JavaScript components and controls, you can easily build modern, high-performant web, mobile, and desktop apps, as well as chatbots. The toolset also includes reporting solutions, automated testing, and productivity tools, and comes with a range of support options. And new this year is a free online training program for all license holders. With this, alongside thousands of demos with source code, comprehensive documentation, and a full assortment of Visual Studio templates, you'll be up and running with the Progress, Telerik, and Kendo UI tools in no time. Download a free 30-day trial today at telerik.com/download. And also consider supporting .NET Rocks by making a monthly pledge at patreon.netrocks.com to ensure .NET Rocks will stay on the air for years to come.
Well, all right, buddy. Who's our winner?
The big winner?
The big winner.
The big winner. The winner of this year's $5,000 technology giveaway is Rush Austin.
Congratulations, Rush.
Yeah. And we recorded a little congratulatory conversation with Rush. Let's roll that now.
So, Rush, what was your reaction when you first got my email?
Man, I was just blown away with a small dose of skepticism at first. I thought, wait a minute, this has got to be a prank or something.
We were going to ask for a $99 deposit before we gave you the money just to complete the Nigerian pinch thing. But, you know, we're not actually that mean.
Anything today I look at with just a glimmer of skepticism. But I thought, I've never heard anything from either of these two guys. So I don't know, maybe it's legit. And,
right.
I'm super excited and so incredibly thankful and grateful.
Sure. Well, thank our sponsors. They make it possible for us to to give this stuff away. What's your experience with .NET and .NET Rocks and all that?
Oh yeah, man. So I'm an old coder. I'm 52 years old. I started full time in 1999, writing C++ and VB6 stuff, and then was around in that first job in it, February of 2002, when .NET 1 was released, and have been using C# primarily in ASP.NET. Back-end coder stuff, talking to databases now for the last however many years that is, 19 years or so.
Man.
Yeah. And I think, were you guys at, I was trying to remember, I've seen you speak live, and I was trying to remember where, and I'm wondering, were you at Tech Ed in Orlando in 2012?
Probably.
Yeah. So I think I spoke to you guys then, and I had been listening to the show for, I don't know, maybe a year before that.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
Well, good.
It's tremendous. There's so much stuff in the framework, and you guys are always shining lights on corners that I never really peer into. So,
that's
it's
great.
a lot of fun.
Well, congratulations. And have you made up your mind what you want to spend your $5,000 on?
Gosh, I have a confession to make. I haven't owned a real television in like the last 15 years.
Wow.
And my
TV sucks that bad, does it?
Well, you might be onto something. And then my streaming rig is this ancient HP tower with like a 21-inch flat panel. So I think I'm going to do some serious AV upgrade.
Great.
Nice.
Yeah. Really looking forward to it.
Cool. So you haven't actually itemized things and figured out exactly what you want yet? You're just sort of still in the shopping phase?
Still in the wanderlust shopping phase right now. Yeah.
Cool. Well, that's great. Well, as soon as you get that list together, send it over to me and we'll make this stuff happen.
I'm going to advocate for the 43-inch 4K display.
Nice.
Dude, it'll change your life.
I appreciate the feedback there. That's great. So, right. In one of the earlier emails, I think someone mentioned just send us the URLs. So to broaden that out, you basically want me to send you the URLs of specific items.
Yeah.
That's right.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. Right on. And would you prefer if I waited and compiled a comprehensive list?
Yeah,
or...
do that. And then that way you can add up the
right
costs of everything and make sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's super, man. I am just blown away by by this event. I'm so appreciative and really, really happy. You guys have a great product, and I love your podcast. And I'm curious about the Gibson you're holding on the front page of your site there.
There's a story with that Gibson guitar. That Gibson guitar has the blues baked into it. It was given to me by, well, I won't say. I don't want to air my dirty laundry, but let's just say it had something to do with my divorce.
Yeah. Okay. Do you still have that guitar?
I do, yeah.
Did you get that one signed by Les?
No, Les Paul signed my Les Paul.
Well, that's a good thing.
Sweet.
Why would he sign a Gibson? That makes no sense. Hey, Les, would you sign my Gibson? What?
Well, yeah, the ES335 that I'm holding there is a Gibson, but the Les Paul is also a Gibson.
Oh, absolutely.
So he signed that, and I, like an idiot, I played it and didn't take the pick guard off it and put it away, so it's like half smudged now. But at least I have pictures to prove it.
Yeah, man. At least you got to meet Les while he was still around. I regret never getting to see him live.
Do you play?
I do. Yeah, I sure do.
Wow.
I've got an old Strat and an Epiphone Dot. I've been thinking about updating my amp situation. I don't know the parameters, how wide
it's
you guys
up to you,
go
man.
technology.
People spend them on cameras. People talk about, so if you want to go all music, that's up to you. It's basically $5,000 in technology.
And believe me, there are people that make guitar amplifiers that want your $5,000.
I know. Yes,
guarantee you that.
We can do this in one fell swoop.
Just like that.
That's right. All right. Well, man, congratulations again, Rush. And thanks for listening to .NET Rocks. And whatever you do, don't stop listening or Richard and I will have to get real jobs.
I wish you all the best and have a great holiday season.
You too.
All right. Take care.
All right. Take care.
Well, that was fun.
Yeah, I love doing that.
I love giving away stuff.
Yeah, it's a great gig. Awesome.
It's an awesome gig. And thanks to our Patreons and everybody who helps us do that every year. Mm-hmm. And we also like to ask our guests, Karl, if you had $5,000 to spend on technology today, what would you buy?
Just today, I would like to buy the Pixie digital rangefinder camera.
Okay.
It's a new kind of approach to this rangefinder scene. I'm a little bit of a camera nut, sometimes even using them, but mostly just buying and switching them. And essentially, it supports the traditional big-time lenses like the M series lenses, where you have your Leica lenses, which last for a lifetime.
Yeah.
I actually got my first Leica from my grandfather, who was a reporter. So it's like 70, 80 years old camera with lenses.
Yeah.
And the same lenses still work with the same camera mount or lens mount. But the difference with that newcomer, or kind of startup version of the rangefinder camera body is that yes, it supports the lenses of the last 100 years of camera technology, but it's actually built for the smartphone era. So it's not trying to do this kind of clumsy touchscreen that most of the camera makers want to do.
Yeah.
But it actually doesn't have a screen at all. You use your smartphone, so there's a companion app which gets updated from time to time.
Interesting.
And they also update the firmware of the actual camera with that. So it's this kind of Tesla.
I'm looking at a picture
cameras.
of it, and the body style is very much the
It's
Leica,
it's very Leica,
old school,
yes.
and it even has a viewfinder on it.
Yes, so it's perfect. You can actually use it as you would use an actual film Leica camera.
Sure.
But then you have your digital kind of rendering. The app actually evolves along the time. So it's not something that you buy $10,000 worth of equipment as a camera body, and it's outdated already when it comes out.
So I have a Canon 80D, and it's got a Wi-Fi feature where you can connect with an app from your phone, but doing that it takes time, and it
10 minutes when you pair it, and then your battery is dead and everything. So
this, I take it, once you pair it, you just go to the app, and it's
Bluetooth
connected.
low energy by default, and once it does the sending, it's Bluetooth 4.0.
Wow.
The clever part about that, of course, now you're no longer paying for the display on the back of the camera, too.
Yeah,
You've already got a great display. It's on your phone.
Or a tablet, if you want to. I mean, the big problem with photography is that's not enough space, that little thing, to really focus on something and tell when it's in focus. You want it to be big. So on a tablet,
if you're already spending, $1,000 or more for an OLED screen, that's small and in your pocket, and you most likely have a lot better screen than you will get on any camera. Why would you not use it?
Does it also do the one of the features of modern cameras that I really like, and I don't have a camera that does this, is the depth of field can change between what you're looking at and the background, right? All the way back if you have a low f-stop. And some cameras will take several shots with different depth of field, and then you can sort of dial in the one that you like.
Well, a good question. It's just literally coming out this December. So I'm looking forward to what they're having at launch time and how it will evolve. Because
3,500 euros too.
Yeah.
It's about 4,000 US.
So you can actually add a used Leica M-mount lens on top of that for that $5,000.
Only Leica lenses?
No, it's an M-mount.
Yeah.
So Zeiss and
Tamron makes a lens.
Yeah, it's one of the
one of the most common mountings.
One of the most common, at least in terms of the historical age.
Wow.
It's so beautiful. It's retro in its look, right?
It's retro.
Very, very clean.
And in terms of business model, it's kind of like what Tesla did to car models. So essentially, it's kind of continuous delivery. We're shipping something, and we keep on improving it with software.
Sure. Right.
I mean, Canon's been pretty diligent about updating the firmware and things, although doing it's kind of a pain in the butt. But no, I appreciate this. This is a very contemporary camera.
Yeah.
In the European style rather than the Japanese style, right? I mean, Nikon, Canon, I have nothing bad to say about either one of those. I fall pretty firmly on the Canon side, but I have respect for the Nikon
With
guys.
Canon, you can.
Yeah. But the Leica, Hasselblad, like really serious European cameras, they're different. They've got a finesse to them that I think is very compelling, and this is a great example of that. Beautiful machine.
Very cool.
And there goes your money, man. You burned it. Without even really buying a lens, just the extras and bits and pieces you're going to want to use this camera. So much for your money.
Yeah.
Great thing.
Before we get back to it, I just want to mention, if you want to join the .NET Rocks fan club and get a shot at winning that $5,000 technology spree next year and for years to come, go to .NETRocks.com, click on the big Get Free Stuff button, answer a few questions, and you can join the fan club, because we have thousands of members all over the world. And every show we'd like to give away stuff from our sponsors, and this particular show was the once-a-year technology giveaway. And we'd like it to be you next year.
Awesome.
So sign up. All right. Technology fails. Security fails. Where were we? Because this is really entertaining to me and a little bit scary, actually.
Yeah. So from this kind of traditional authentication and authorization type of fails that you'll come across on all kinds of systems,
Sure.
not just even software systems, but, having a security guard in your lobby and walking with your hardtop and your ladder with you all the way. That's something that's not Azure specific, but what's different from Azure compared to what you have on your traditional IT system or your own hosting environment is the fact that by default, of course, you can't just point to the server and say that if it's still there, it's still blinking, nobody's stolen it from me yet.
Yeah.
Right.
Server monitoring by blinky light. I like that a lot.
That's the best, especially during the holiday times.
Yes.
Yeah.
But the light's blinking faster.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's green and sometimes it's red. So this always on type of connectivity means that by default, everything is open to not just you, but everybody else as well.
Right.
By default, if you just hit on next, and create a virtual machine or anything else, the kind of hosting layer or the kind of sandbox that you want to create for your application is always accessible to anybody. By default, your Azure SQL database as a service is open to anybody to connect to. And even if you open, IP-based holes into that quote-unquote firewall, it's still very much open to everybody else. By default, everything is closed and we are opening bits and pieces just when requested is reversed. So the network approach is a lot different from what we used to have. And because we are sitting on top of multiple layers of abstraction of virtual network, Microsoft has their own SD-WAN, then there's something else, and then we actually have our own virtual network concept where we actually have our own platform as a service components or infrastructure as a service components. You can't just say that, let's just use a Cisco product or a known firewall product that we have already and then let's be done with it.
Right.
No, the whole approach needs to change.
So is this more software-defined networking?
It's about that, but it's also about giving more power to the, let's say, or more network and threat modeling decisions towards the application architectural design. So it's about whether or not we want to put more money in our Azure App Service plan and get this kind of network level control.
Right.
Or do we want to actually design it a little bit more modular so we are still getting the benefits of the platform as a services? We are just adding the kind of regular Azure App Service, not this isolated mode or App Service environment mode.
Yeah.
It sits in a shared environment. So it's not ours. We can't put it in a virtual network. We can't put Wireshark there and see all the network data that's coming in and out.
Right.
Yeah.
But we can configure it so that, for example, it's only talking through a web application firewall, or it's only allows a request to come in if you also have the successful authentication token from your Azure AD, for example. So instead of network level, you actually have this identity level kind of control towards your application.
Well, and you kind of know in your architectural design, there should be no external access to the database. It's going to be like something in this instance pool is the only thing that can call to this database.
Yeah, exactly.
So you should be able to define all of that and just cut down the surface area.
Yes, but depending on where you're actually running your application code, you can't just whitelist an IP address, or you can't just say it will be always this DNS name. If you're scaling massively or even just a little bit automatically, you can't really always predict where are you actually calling.
How many instances you're really dealing with.
Yeah, exactly. So again, with that, with your Azure SQL database, you actually need to invest in using your Azure AD identities to actually query that data.
Right. So the identity is the thing that has the privilege to get through to the network.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's right.
So that's useful.
Yeah.
You just got to define it properly.
Exactly.
Takes a little extra work.
Yeah.
Yes. And that's actually a good segue from your application layer access. So as we will define any other application in traditional world, we need to define some kind of application control, which end user is allowed to query which data set.
Right.
And actually, we are talking on the background with our database from our application layer with some sort of system account, right? So that needs to be an Azure AD account. We maybe need to have multiple of those, all of that design. But that's something that we have kind of done also before. But that's privilege and, authorization. What's the scope? Again, who is going to access it? Who has access to this? Is it something that's shared in a common, in your Dropbox, shared with your team in a Excel file or a KeyPass? Doesn't matter if it's a if it's a KeyPass. If it's still shared with your peers, then it's not really. We can't point that it was you who did this.
Can you define an account for a machine like that says this account is only usable on this machine or this cluster?
In Azure, we have something called an Azure AD service principal, which is something that's essentially it's a key value pair that you can use to authenticate against your Azure AD. And that can be assigned any sort of access as any user would.
Right.
So instead of an interactive login, you actually have, you store it somewhere.
Right. And Key Vault, I presume.
Key Vault is a good example. Yeah. And for example, you can instrument your Azure DevOps, formerly known as Visual Studio Team Services, formerly known as Visual Studio Online, formerly known as, TFS on the cloud. And you can instrument your Azure DevOps so that it accesses your Azure subscriptions using your service principal. And that's actually one of the kind of most common failures that I see as well, is that if you just go next on the wizard, even though you're supposed to do everything on the kind of templates and command lines, still I see a lot of people just going on the GUI, next.
But it's a good it's a good idea to say, hey, we never use domain loginable accounts as service accounts in these apps. Exactly. So there's just this fundamental schism. If you somehow breach that app and you get this account, it's worthless to you unless you can get it to run from that machine. Yeah. You can't use it as a login.
No, you can't.
So it's just a whole class of vulnerability that's dead because you've been diligent with those accounts.
Exactly. And it should be by default you have no access, and you also only add the access that the specific service principal needs. And with your Azure DevOps specifically, by default what you get if you just go next, it's actually not even a service principal, but it's actually going to authenticate your own with your own personal credentials in your centralized build management. Yeah. So no, first of all, it's kind of non-repudiation issue that somebody can run bad actors or bad Spartans onto your hosting environment and claim that it was you because you look from the Azure log, it was using your credentials.
Yeah, that whole reusing of credentials in general. Yeah.
Not at all.
It's a trap. It's worth fighting your way out of it because it also is a record of the truth.
That's exactly what it is. And Azure DevOps gives us a lot more kind of tangible logs what Azure actually gives us from who actually approved this PR, who actually approved this release, and what were the credentials used to actually deploy this in the region environment. Yeah, exactly. Right. And by default, again, if you go and assign your build pipelines to your Azure environment, not only does it use your own credentials, it also gives you essentially, if you say, please create me a service principal, it will create you a service principal with subscription scope, owner access. And then we are back at this.
Oh no, that's way too high privilege.
Yes, exactly. So you need to go and find this kind of advanced button and input your own manually created service principals in there.
It sounds more complicated than it needs to be. Is it just an oversight on Microsoft part that they haven't done a good job of tailoring?
I believe it's a classical different teams are not talking to each other.
Yeah, okay, that's fair. But yeah, it's just the I would hope it would default to an account with the minimum privileges necessary to operate.
Yes. And they have been better lately on that, but there's still some way to go.
Yeah, and there's no scenario I can think of where the default account is owner.
Yeah,
like that's always a mistake.
Yes, and really for a service principal, why is it even possible that your service principal can be an owner?
Yeah,
really.
Yeah,
and you can add privileges to a service principal too. So it's almost like you want to give them enough that they can log in but barely do anything, and then as you kind of want it to hit against the wall of, it tried to do this, it didn't have the privileges, here's the error message, this is the privilege required. And now you can go in and just add that privilege to that service principal.
Yeah, that's right.
It would be great if we were clever enough to think through everything a piece of software is going to do and figure out all the roles that it's going to require. I'm not that smart. I'd rather not have enough privileges and keep running into privileges it needed and add them in that way.
And that's a whole agile and iterative way, really.
Sure.
If you know all of the roles that you need to do, then you're not being fast enough.
Yeah. Dodging it all by going, you're an owner, knock yourself out. He'd just ask you for trouble.
So let's say that you're not a one-man shop, and being a one-man shop nowadays, you have to do everything, security as well as developer and IT infrastructure, even if you're using Azure. Let's say that you're a developer on a team. Maybe there's 100 people on the team, and you have some IT people and you have some IT security people. And what is the minimum security requirement that you have to do as a developer, that you have to be cognizant of, even when there are other people on the team that are supposedly doing security, whatever that means?
Well, as a single individual developer, of course, the classics: don't store credentials in code.
Yeah.
Be mindful of storage account keys are actually way too powerful compared to what they can do. So definitely, as a kind of tech lead or in the architectural design, if you see somebody using either directly or using individual storage account keys, don't let them, because they need to be rotated very much periodically.
Yeah.
Preferably through a key vault or something else.
Key vault's not expensive, and it's a good place to put your SSL private keys. Like, it's good. Use it.
And storage account keys, obviously, those things.
Yeah. We did that show with Adam Kogan about the different Azure services, like first Azure AD,
right,
then Key Vault.
Yeah.
then we can start talking about what services we want to harness and so forth. But it's like, you are always going to need these two things. It's just sort of reality. And it's a good behavior.
And then we move really on to from the classic. What's typically missing is the monitoring side. So by default, Azure stores all these kind of activity log, what they call Azure Resource Manager activity logs, which are essentially audit logs. They used to be called audit logs, but not anymore. But they are audit logs. We see who logged in, who logged in, out. What did they do, what sort of identity did they use, did they use, were they MFA authenticated, did they use, Windows integrated authentication, did they use just password, who are they? And then we also see the Azure resource provider level action again. What is the specific call that got made, and even that they tried, but it failed.
Right.
And these logs are by default stored only for 90 days.
Okay.
And if you heard of any leaks or any kind of attackers, then you know that
it's longer than that.
It's a lot longer. It's 200 days, 500 days, depending on which statistic you actually believe in.
Yeah.
But by default, you can very, very much assume that, or you can rest assured that an attacker has been in your environment for more than 90 days when you actually bust them.
By the time you find them.
Wow.
Yes.
And in which case their original breach and whatever they did is rolled off your logs already.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So the first thing to do is always to kind of set up the retention of those logs for more than 90 days.
But I presume it's pretty simple to do.
Well, it's not.
Oh.
So
why is this hard?
So for a while there, it was actually missing altogether from the UI.
Oh.
So you actually had to go to the Azure Resource Manager and actually manually edit the field in there. And now it's back again in the log analytics. So what you first need to do is, in your Azure subscription, you actually need to export your logs to your Azure Log Analytics, which is Log Analytics Workspace, which is something that Microsoft is now rebranding to Azure Logs. And it's a big data space where you can dump all kinds of data and you can run different queries and do different dashboards and analytics. And one of those kind of integrations is with Azure Activity Logs. And then with that Azure Log Analytics Workspace, you can then configure your specific retention time. It's hidden under the cost and usage, but now it is there in your portal UI as well.
Good.
That sounds like the next thing you need is now start measuring everything that goes on.
Next thing you need to do is call Karl .com.
So my rates are.
Yeah, price is going up as you speak.
So what's next for you? What's in your inbox?
Next for me is the busy holiday season. A lot of closing new customers and actually closing the projects that we are doing with deadlines coming up with this. This is actually my last conference of the season.
Okay. Nice.
So I'm looking forward to spring, and actually by spring I mean January. So I'm actually organizing a conf called IgluConf, which is in
IgluConf in
Finland?
Finland?
In Finland, and it's literally the coolest Azure conference out there.
It's going to be in an ice hotel?
It's not in a nice hotel, but there will be ice hole diving, which is a Finnish...
What'd you call me?
So
willingly jumping into water through a hole in the ice.
Yes, exactly.
This is a kind of brain damage.
Wow.
Right
Yes.
here.
No, not really.
Yeah. No, it's pretty brain
So would
damage.
you like a couple of overweight, middle-aged podcasters to join you at this conference?
Definitely, you never refuse a offer like that.
That sounds fun.
Do a little Finland.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. It's been great pleasure talking to you today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
All right, Karl. And we'll see you next time on .NET Rocks. .NET Rocks is brought to you by Franklin's Net and produced by Pwop Studios, a full-service audio, video, and post-production facility located physically in New London, Connecticut, and of course in the cloud. Online at pwop.com. Visit our website at dotnetrocks.com for RSS feeds, downloads, mobile apps, comments, and access to the full archives going back to show number 1, recorded in September 2002. And make sure you check out our sponsors. They keep us in business. Now go write some code. See you next time.
Got transmitter banned by the FCC. Yes, I'm a